Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Alestrals deck profile for you. So this one's actually going to be a bit of an updated profile to one of the earlier ones I did for Rhinosect. So Rhinosect, for those who don't remember, is a 2 Frost Spirit Alestral with 8 attack, 5 defense that can be special cast from your hand if you have a card that is originally an Alestral in your rune row. You can also target and destroy an empowered Alestral. So it's a very powerful effect, not only being able to be special cast directly from your hand if you can meet the condition, but also being able to destroy your opponent's Alestrals as well. Very, very strong. If you can drop multiple of these down in one turn, then it's a very, very easy way to close out the game. So this is an updated deck profile. Like I said, if you want to see my previous build, I'll link in the description below, but I do think this one is a lot more refined. This is, I also affectionately like to refer to this as quote-unquote psycho Rhinosect, because we're going like all in on just turboing out big frost dudes as soon as possible. Not just the Rhinosect either. We have another one that I'm going to talk about here in a second. So we are, of course, on 3 copies of the aforementioned Rhinosect. It is, of course, the namesake of the deck. Granted, there are other decks that have namesakes that we've only played 2 copies of, but no, you absolutely want to play 3 Rhinosect, and you're going to draw and dig very aggressively to find this card. Mulliganing is something that you do very aggressively in this deck to try to get your hand, to be as good as possible. But on top of that, the other 2 Spirit Frost card that we're playing here is 2 copies of Cryovern. So Cryovern's effect is really not important here at all, because it lets you ascend into a Cryoscorch from deck. But we're actually not playing Cryoscorch in this deck. It's just going to be Cryovern. We're just using it as a 7/4 big body that can be cheated out of the deck pretty easily in a way that we're going to talk about here in a moment. So what kind of brings these cards together in this deck are their respective quote-unquote base forms. Rhinymph is going to be the, again, quote-unquote base form of Rhinosect. This is a 1/5/1 Frost Spirit Alestral that you can expend a Frost in order to move it to your rune row and equip it to an opponent's Alestral, giving it -2 defense. But the -2 defense isn't the important part. Mainly is just putting this in the rune row and then specialing your Rhinosects from hand and also destroying the empowered Alestral on your opponent's side, right? The other nice thing about Rhinymph is that even if your opponent does try to Gorgon's Gaze it, to try to stop the effect, if you throw it out in defense mode, it's got 5 defense, which is very, very respectable. Very hard to run over, especially in the early game, so very, very good there. And then to go with the Cryoverns, we're playing 3 copies of Cryoling. This is a 1/3 for 1 Frost that gets +1 attack for each Frost in your Underworld. And when this Cryoling has 6 or more attack during your main phase, you must either destroy it or special send it to a Cryovern from your hand or deck. So the thing about this deck, and for reasons that we're gonna see moving forward here, is that you spend a lot of Frost very quickly. Like, I think just about every single game I've played with this deck, I've had the potential to go Cryoling into Cryovern turn 1, because we start off with 6 Frost in our yard. Like I said, you're already going to mulligan very, very aggressively in this deck to find Rhinosect and Rhinymph, right? The goal is to have at least one of each of these cards in your opening hand, ideally. Not all the time, but most of the time you can actually make that happen. Not just through mulliganing, but through other stuff we're going to see here in a little bit. So that's kind of like the main idea of the deck here, right? We also have 3 copies of Catarant for our remaining Frost cards. This is basically like the Nemesail or Dratagua for Frost, right? When it receives 1 or more Frost Spirits, you can return 2 Frost Spirits from your Underworld to your Spirit deck. Very, very important to be healing. That's why we're on 3 of this. The previous build was on 2. That was absolutely too few. You pretty much always want to see this on your, like, follow-up turns to, like, hopefully not lose super quickly. That is kind of the idea behind this deck. It can be a bit of an aggressive deck in that regard, in that you spend your Frost Spirits way down on turn 1 to turbo out these big dudes as soon as possible, and then try to overwhelm your opponent with them before they can capitalize on you having few spirits, or as you're recouping your spirits with the Catarant, right? That's all of our Frost Celestrals. We still have a few more. We're playing 3 Narpoon, pretty obvious. It searches 1 Spirit Frost Celestrals, so that's Catarant, Cryoling, and also Rhinymph, so pretty natural that we play a playset of the Narpoon. And then we are also playing 3 Astrabbit. Not only is it an Alestral deck, but especially being a more combo-focused deck, you absolutely want the Rapids to dig for your Rhinymphs and Rhinosects, right? So that's going to be it for our Alestrals. For runes, for non-Omnis, we're playing 2 Cryoblasts. I opted not to play Earthquake in this build and decided to try out Cryoblast instead to make our Spirit count a little nicer, and I like it. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a fine substitute in a deck like this for Earthquake, especially because, like, if we need to destroy stuff that Cryoblast can't, then, well, ideally, we have the Rhinosect to do that, right? So, and then we are also playing 2 copies of Tsunamis because we're already playing water for the Narpoons. Previous build also played Eddies, but, Eddie is a very good card, and it wouldn't be awful here. The thing is, though, like I said, I really just want to focus on either getting out the big guys, like turboing these out, or, like, healing off the Catarant, right? The Eddie, like, yeah, it can, like, take out a dude pretty efficiently, but spending a whole turn to do that in this deck is actually a little bit much to ask. So for the Omni runes, we have some ones that you would expect to see, like the 3 Ambrosia, right? But here's where we're getting a little bit into Psycho territory. I'm actually playing 3 Drops of Leaf, as well as 3 Nectar of the Gods. This was also the case in our previous build, right? Drops of Leaf is basically the ability to mulligan part of your hand for 2 spirits, which is pretty nice. And then Nog, of course, to draw 2. Very, very important. Well, Nog is very important for most combo decks. Most combo decks still probably wouldn't play Drops of Leaf. I do think there's only a handful of decks who actually want to play this card in. Magical Mallet Plus is pretty good, but it is also pretty expensive. That said, you know, we're definitely looking to spend down on our Frost Spirits on turn 1 for the Cryolings. So, like, a lot of turn 1s of this deck, you're going to, like, mulligan into Nog, into drops, and then you'll be down to, like, you know, 14 spirits before you even commit an Alestral. But again, that is enough to get you into the Cryoling, into Cryovern on turn 1 potentially. And more than just spending spirits, this is also like hand sculpting to end on Rhinymph and Rhinosect for a follow-up turn. So I could definitely see a more balanced build of this deck, just cutting the Drops of Leaf. And maybe even one of the Nectar Gods, and from there you can also cut like a Catarant and just play more like, I don't know, I guess regular stuff. But I like just turboing into our big stuff as soon as possible. Rest of the deck is pretty standard stuff. We got 3 Resting on Your Laurels, 3 Gorgon's Gaze, and then 3 Poison Tipped Arrows. So that's going to be the rest of it there. Shield of Achilles, I think, is just a little bit too expensive for this deck as far as like removal goes. Just to bounce a dude. Like, if I'm going to pay 2, I want to negate or destroy it. And again, the idea is that we are, you know, trying to just go into our big dudes as soon as possible. If you want more counter runes, I would actually probably play a 3rd Tsunami, because we get so low on spirits in deck, being able to stop all of your opponent's attacks for 1 spirit is very, very efficient cost. So, again, if you want more counterplay, I would definitely go for Tsunami number 3, and then start looking at shields, right? The spirit deck is exceedingly simple, actually. We have 3 Leviathan, 3 Zaptor, which means our 14 remaining spirits are all Flurmines. So 3 Leviathan might look like not a lot for 5 water cards. We have 2 Tsunami and 3 Narpoon, but I think that's actually completely fine. I haven't really had a situation where I run out of water just yet. In fact, there's a lot of games where I'll even like misenchant the Cryovern with a water, because I just, you know, you need to preserve Frost to be able to like it's weird, right? Early on, you want to expend a lot of Frost for your stuff in order to make the Cryoling live, but then pretty much after that, you kind of want to put the brakes on expending a lot of Frost that willy-nilly, because you do still need to be able to pay for, like, you know, Rhinymph into Rhinosect costs 4 spirits, 4 Frost Spirits by itself, so definitely still got to make sure you can pay for that. We are playing the 3rd Zaptor, though, because this is the kind of deck where, like, you could very easily find yourself re-enchanting the Astrap to keep digging for more combo pieces. So definitely want to play the 3 Zaptor there. But that's going to go ahead and do it for our list. Now let's go ahead and look at these games here. Okay, time to dive into these games against JJ, of course, with our Rhinosect deck. I'm going to start off by mulliganing here. JJ is going to be on Earth Nexus, I believe, for this one, by the way. But, yeah, definitely going to lead off by a mulligan here. Not that you always do that, but, you know, you do tend to mulligan fairly aggressively, you know, in a deck like this. So, Yeah, a lot of the time, I mean, it's like I said, that's like part of where your Frost Spirits are going to be going most of the time, right? It's just mulliganing for a, not even necessarily like good hand as opposed to like the one you had before, but just a more optimized one, right? And sometimes, I don't know, very occasionally it might even be just to get those Frost Spirits in the yard, but I wouldn't really do it for that reason alone, necessarily, but... Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started here with Drops of Leaf, which is, again, kind of like a mini mulligan in and of itself. Spending 2 Frost for that. I'm going to be putting back Tsunami, excuse me, Catarant, and let's see if I put back anything else here. Oh, just those 2, so getting to draw 3 off of that. Yeah, again, most decks don't want to be spending down quite this quickly, but we definitely actually do, so... Setting all that stuff up there. Naturally, there is an inherent risk to this kind of a strategy, but... Again, the idea being that we can throw down some of those big... Sorry if I'm repeating myself a lot from the profile. I don't know if I actually am or not, because I'm in love with you. It's been, like, probably 3 or 4 days since I recorded that section, so hopefully I'm not just repeating myself too much here, but... And another Drops of Leaf. This is kind of why I affectionately refer to this deck as Psycho Rhino Sect, because you really are just, like, going all in on plays like this. Oh yeah, I gotta make sure I spend my 2 Frosts there, of course, so... putting back, I believe it was Resting and Poison-Tipped Arrow. Putting back PTA, it might look kind of weird, but you actually end up doing that with Drops of Leaf and Mulligans a decent bit, because... You want your opponent to have a creature on the board for you to be able to equip with your Rhinymph. That way you can turbo out your Rhino Sects, right? So, alright. Drawing another 3 since we put 2 back there. Also worth noting again that, like, if we have a Cryoling here, we could just drop that and it would immediately go into the Cryovern on our turn 1. But no such luck with that. We are going to have a Narpoon, though, which will do a little bit of searching for us. And we grabbed the Rhinymph, so it looks like we definitely still needed that. And can pretty safely assume that we have a Rhino Sect in hand at this point as well. Otherwise, I probably would have gone for the Cryoling or the Catarant. Alright, putting 1 card face down and passing over to JJ. Very patiently waiting for me to finish my turn 1 here as I mulligan, and then drops, essentially mulliganing 3 times. Alright, let's see what he's got for us here. Yeah, that Earth deck, it's a pretty good one. I've played it quite a bit. I mean, you've seen the profile on my... Maybe you haven't, but I have made a profile on the channel for it. That one didn't have gameplay, so I might need to make one with gameplay here soon. Astrabbit coming down here. I'm going to PTA the Astrabbit, but the bunny itself will resolve. I know I just said it that, you know, you want to have the... body on board for the Rhino Sect, but I'm assuming I don't have it actually in my hand at this point. Maybe I already had a Cryoling, and that's why I didn't grab it with the Narpoon, and I wanted to get the search in on turn 1 in case I did draw the Rhino Sect. That would make sense. But we are going to pay out the PTA here. Drawing for turn. Okay, I think it is a Cryoling, because I'm pretty sure I'm just counting my spirits. Yep. It is in fact Cryoling, so the effect will, of course, immediately proc, because it is definitely above 6 attack at this point. So we are going to Special Ascend into that there... Where is it? There it is, Cryovern. I mean, that's the thing about the Cryovern that I like. Again, I know I talked about this in the profile portion. It might seem a little bit weird to be playing this without Cryo Scorch, but again, we really just want it for the body, for the 7/4 body. I'm gonna throw it out Misenchanted to save on some frost here. I'm starting to run a little bit low, if you can believe it. Excuse me, but yeah, no, that 7/4. I mean, that's a lot of why we play the Rhino Sect too. Like, yeah, the destroy effect is nice, but really what we're after is that 8/5 body that's that we can just drop from the hand, right? Alright, let's see what JJ's got coming up here. Alright, going for an Earth, and it's going to be resting on your laurels. So that is going to hit the Narpoon. Remember, resting has to hit the one with fewest spirits, so... Viscerous coming down here, which I only assume can mean Demeter is falling up. Yep, looks like, in fact, Demeter is coming down, so... pretty not good for me. The Demeter will buff the Viscerous to a total of 8 attack, which is enough to get over the Cryovern, and then, of course, also activate the Viscerous effect, so... Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about Earth, right, that makes it so good, is that its cards are all so efficient. You know, the Viscerous is a one-card threat by itself, as for, like, the whole board state, right? The Demeter is just basically one card. It's kind of optimistic to think of it this way a little bit, but it's kind of one card, multiple forms of removal. Zeus is kind of the same, right? Where, ideally, if it sticks around and you have the Elestrals to battle with, you can use multiple activations to get rid of multiple Elestrals. So... here I'm going to throw down my Rhynymph in defense mode. I'm going to expend a Fleur Mine to try to activate the effect here, equipping to one of the Visceruses. But I'm pretty sure JJ is probably going to have something to say about that. Oh yeah, he's asking exactly how it plays out. So Rhynymph itself does not summon the Rhinosect. It is simply equipping. And then the Rhinosect has the special Ascend effect when you have a equip card on the field. So, I mean, either way, I think this is going to get Gorgons. And either way, you do want a Gorgons. Yep. Or no, it's Altar, actually. Yeah, but if you have a Gorgons, either way, you definitely do want to make sure that you're using the Gorgons on the Rhynymph. So, funny thing about the Rhynymph here is that it actually doesn't target. I thought that it did. Which is why JJ did the altar there. And I'm kind of explaining to him that, like, oh, hey, this actually doesn't target. So if you want to redo that altar play, you can definitely do it differently if you'd like. But I think he does end up doing it the same way. Oh, no, well, yeah, he does it the same way, but basically he can just wait until the Rhynymph is already equipped and then use the altar, spending the spirit from the equipped Viscerous, causing it to go to the yard... the Underworld, rather, which will cause my Rhynymph to go to the Underworld, and then I can't summon the Rhinosect. So, either way, Altar does stop the Rhinosect from coming down in this situation. So, that was very well played on JJ's part. That was a very creative solution to stop me from just dropping the Rhinosect, right? I was gonna say it's kind of interesting that I chose to try to destroy the defense mode Viscerous, but it kind of makes sense if I want to just battle over the attack mode one for damage, which, me being as low as I am, I want to try to catch back up on Spirit, so that does make sense. JJ debated for a moment there if he wanted to go for the bunny in attack or defense mode, ultimately going for attack mode. Again, because he's so far ahead in Spirits here, right, that it definitely makes sense. Setting a card, entering battle, attempting to swing. I have the Tsunami here, so that'll be nice for... stopping that damage. But let's see if I can find anything to really truly follow up with here. Was that 6, 7? Shoot, I looked down at the timeline right as I was counting out the Spirit deck there, but it's all good. Yeah, top deck Drops of Leaf, and it's like, I'm kind of in a situation where even though this is really expensive right now, I, like, have to do it. Because, yeah, look at the 2 cards in my head. It's literally Cryover and Rhinosect. Like, I can't do anything with that. So, like, it's funny. Literally in one activation, you're seeing, like, a lot of the big pros and a lot of the big cons of Drops of Leaf, right? The big pros being, if you have these cards like Cryover or Rhinosect that might be dead in your hand, you can put them back and, you know, of course, try to find some better stuff. But... of course, the downside being that I had to pay 2 spirits for that in a situation where I'm already very, very low, paying down from 6 to 4, it looks like. So, thankfully, we did draw an Ambro in those 3, but, I mean, that's always worth, you know, noting, right, is how expensive cards can be. So, alright, here we're going to go for the Catarant following the Ambro. JJ is going to Gorgons that. Paying 1 off the Demeter and then 1 from the deck. It's interesting. I guess probably doesn't need that water in the spirit deck as much. I guess GG is kind of low-ish. I mean, I am catching back up here. We got another Ambro coming down, so... Yeah, I just decided to put back a water this time. So, you know, that's a net gain of 4? No, 3 spirits, because I did spend 1... I spent 3 for Ambro Cataract, and I gained 6 back. So yes, a total of 3 spirits. And then the Ambro, or the Cataract, was negated. Otherwise, it would have been a net gain of 5 spirits, but anyway. That is a Moss Station coming down here. It's kind of... It's a Shattered Stars art, so if you don't recognize it, that might be why. But Moss Station being the Goblin attack force of Elestrals. A 4-1 that actually gets +2 attack for each enchanting earth it has, so it's effectively a 6-1. And then switches itself to defense mode after it battles. And of course the Viscate is summon another copy. So brutal. It's so brutal. You fall behind against that Viscerus, and it is so Jover. Alright, we do have a Cryoling here on our turn. Trying to go into the Cryovern. Where is it? There it is. I think JJ... Well, I don't know. Did he attack with the Moss Station? I don't know if I saw myself take spirit damage. I think he might have forgotten to switch the Moss Station defense. It doesn't really super duper matter here. Like, I mean, even with the Cryoling play, or Cryovern play rather, like, you know, yeah, I have the strongest body on board right now, but of course the Demeter is still up, and it just is probably not going to matter at this point. But I'm still going to go out swinging, so. And look at that, he's even got the shield for my last Cryovern here. So, yeah, at this point I'm just going to call it and give the game to him. But we do have another game following up this one here, so let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Alright. I'm going to be starting this one, because I lost that last game. Starting off with a Nog. So not mulliganing this hand, but, you know, not hard to see why with the Nectar of the Gods there. I remember, right, this is actually a pretty good hand. Yeah, we have the Astrabbit here for a little more hand sculpting, which is nice. Considering my options here, taking the card that I want. I notice I've been a little loose on showing my hand and deck to the camera. You know, it's funny, as the more, like, the longer the friendly games go on, the more loose I get about that in general, but gotta tighten that up for tournament play. Practicing tightening that up for tournament play is never a bad thing, so. Gonna drop some Leaf here, putting back a Rhinymph and a PTA, which probably pretty easily telegraphs what's in my hand. Obviously, me putting back a Rhinymph means I already have a Rhinymph, and again, PTA I generally do just put back, but I think I already have, spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure I already have one Rhinosect in my hand, and I actually draw a second one here, so living that Rhinosect dream, or I will be on my next turn here. I'm going to set a card and pass. Also put 4 Frost in the yard for the Cryoling on turn 1, which is nice. Alright, JJ leading off with the Mudlet. Mudlet gonna force the Astrabbit into attack mode there. Alright, he's got a set, entering battle, gonna try to swing Mudlet over the bunny. I'm gonna Tsunami here to save my rabbit and also put the Mudlet to defense mode, but of course mostly just save the rabbit, so. Alright, now from here is the Rhinymph. Gonna put that down in defense mode, of course, with a 5 defense, and then we will await a response from JJ before we decide to activate the effect here. I mean, if it's PTA, you know, whatever, we just expend. It doesn't matter, because we're just gonna expend anyway. Gorgons, yep, which is coming down here. I was gonna say Gorgons would come down in response to the actual effect itself, so. Alright, and then passing back over. Yeah, it is so nice about that Rhinymph that even if it does get negated, that 5 defense, I mean, it's why Astrabbit is one of the things that makes Astrabbit so good, is that 5 defense is actually pretty difficult to get over, and of course the same is absolutely true of the Rhinymph as well. Yeah, JJ considering his options here. Going for a Moss Station again. So that is a 6-1, so that does have the ability to battle over. And also got the Demeter, looks like, here too. Dang, so he can actually just battle over both of my dudes. But I think I have an actual Dream Hand here. Like, I'm pretty sure I actually not only have double, again, spoiler alert, double Rhino Sex, but I'm pretty sure I just have another Rhynymph anyway. Alright, Moss Station going to defense before passing back over to me. And sure enough, yep, I knew it. I had a feeling that was the case this game. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing about Rhino Sect, and we're definitely going to see that right here. I mean, we kind of saw it in the first game too, right? When things don't go right in this deck, you are kind of struggling. But when things do go right, you're typically eating pretty well. I mean, really, even just getting one Rhino Sect on the board is often good enough. But here, we actually have the double. So one of them I'm going to enchant correctly. The other I'm going to misenchant with a water. Mostly because, I mean, as always as ever with this deck, I'm already getting pretty low on the frost rate. Blowing up the defense mode Moss Station when I hit the defense mode card so I can get in some more damage here. But yeah, so that's why I misenchanted one of the Rhino Sects, is to save on Frost Spirits a little bit. You got to make sure you keep stuff, Frost Spirits for like the Cryoling into Cryovern or Catarant and all that stuff. So also, typically beyond when you first play it that turn, the Rhino Sect effect doesn't actually matter. Like, we're mostly just here for the 8/5 body that can special ascend itself from hand. That's it's pretty good. So here I'm yeah, pointing out that the one on the right is misenchanted with water. The one on the left is correctly enchanted with double frost. Yeah, JJ's got that Demeter up. And another Moss Station to go with it. I was gonna say it would take an already really big Alestral to be able to battle over the Rhino Sect, but he does just have it here. But thankfully it looks like that's all he's got. Moss Station going to defense mode, so we can probably take that out with a follow-up play, which is yet going to be Narpoon. This is actually perfect, because here I can Narpoon for the Catarant, and then starting next turn we can just focus on using Catarant to start healing back all those frosts that we spent. I kind of like this deck for that reason, though. Like, it sometimes can be a little bit difficult to manage, but I like riding the line, that kind of gameplay of, like, you know, having to spend a lot of spirits early and then try to recoup them later. I think it's interesting. So, of course, going to swing over the Moss Station with the Narpoon, and then we can swing in for 2 with the Rhino Sect, and we have a set card to go with it, so yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, when Rhino Sect games go well, they tend to go very, very well. And this is definitely just one of those game states. So, another Astrabbit. I'm just going to Gorgons that. I really just don't want JG to find, like, Resting or Earthquake or something here that would potentially make it difficult for me to come back. So, I think it's worth it a lot of the time. Like, I guess there are some game states, if I was really, really far ahead, and also had more backup plays in hand, right? There are situations like that where I might not Gorgons and Astrabbit, but generally speaking, I will Gorgons and Astrabbit, like, the majority of the time. Like, probably at least 75, if not 80% of the time. Stopping that, I mean, that effect is so powerful. Like, there's just a reason it plays a 3-of in every deck, right? And same, there's also a reason why, you know, typically, you just don't ever mulligan a hand with Astrabbit. Alright, JJ's at 4 spirits. We have the PTA for the Astrabbit. It's a very good spot for us to be in, because now we can kill the Astrabbit and we threaten lethal on board. Well, not lethal, because we'll put him at 0 on board. But without any cards on the field, that is pretty much going to be lethal, so okay, looks like he does have an Ambro here. Oh, I was going to pay out during the end phase. That's what that was. I was like, why was I putting a spirit in the yard? Okay, yeah, here we go. Pay him out that PTA. Alright, so now he's at 6. I'm pretty sure, well, I guess I don't know what's in my hand off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the play here is just re-enchant the Catarant. Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing. Re-enchant the Catarant, that gets me back 2 more Frost, and then also lets me still swing in for another Spirit of Damage. So, if all these attacks connect, we will put JJ down to 1 here. The nice thing is that this board actually plays very well against Tsunami as well. That's, of course, one of the reasons why I put a water specifically under the Rhinosect, right? Alright, Shield is actually going to be the face down on the Catarant here, so doesn't get to swing in for 2. I mean, it doesn't get to swing in for 2, but JJ still paid 2 for the Shield, and I can just recast the Catarant, so... Alright, Viscerus is going to be his last dude. I can run over my Darpoon, but of course our Rhinosect simply battles over the Viscerus on the follow-up turn, and that's going to do it. So... Alright, thanks as always for watching. Of course, as always, ever check out links below for JJ's YouTube channel there. Yeah, that's going to do it. This is Hexlex. I'm signing out and hoping you have a fantastic day.